Hi, my name's Yokam. I was born in Oakland, California, raised in San Francisco for about the first 13 years of my life, and the next 5 in Richmond across the bay. And then it was time, once I got out of high school, to do something with my life. Wanted to fly, so went to the Air Force, and they told me I had to come back a week later to do a test. A week later I showed up, they were closed, but the Marine Corps was there, and I decided to join the Corps. A few months later they sent me to AFES in Oakland, and I was qualified 4F, physically unqualified for service. I went home, went to my doctor. He said, actually wrote a letter to the Marine Corps saying, "You're looking for a few good men. This guy's more of a man than you if you think he's 4F just because he has 3 testicles." So they took me immediately. 2 weeks later I wrote my mother a letter saying that if you haven't seen me around, I'm in boot camp in San Diego. That was kind of fun in its own way because I was an agnostic pantheist, which they couldn't get that all on my dog tag. And so that created some problems with my DIs and some of the things that went on there. But all in all, it was a great experience. There were times where I thought I'd never make it through, but I knew millions had gone before me, so I knew I could do it too. And I did. Enjoyed the hell out of it. Went to ITR in Camp Pendleton and was assigned an MOS of 0141, Remington Raider, Office Pinky, Office Pogue. Unit Diary Clerk was actually what I did. And became real proficient on that. My first duty station was with Com Company Headquarters Battalion, 2nd Mardiv at Camp Lejeune. Got my first office hours there, and I kind of questioned my reason for going in the Corps because I thought it was rather petty what I was written up for. A few months after I'd been there, I was transferred to Max Deuce, Marine Corps Air Control Squadron 2 in Kaneohe Bay, Hawaii. And I know I'd be there for 2 years. It was a 2-year duty station. Prior to this, I had been trying to get to Vietnam because I'd had the civilian viewpoint of what was going on. I had lived in a hippie commune for a while and kind of had their viewpoint. I now had the Marine Corps viewpoint. Now I wanted my own viewpoint. So I kept putting in for it, never got it. And going to Hawaii for a 2-year duty, I knew I wouldn't get it. But a year and a half after that, being in Kaneohe, I received orders for Vietnam, which was only left me 8 months in the service. So I ended up in Vietnam, and in July of 1970, I went TAD to HMM 364, the Purple Foxes. Loved the logo, give a shit. At first I wondered what they meant by that, and I realized afterwards that it meant that they do give a shit on what they do. So I flew for 30 days, enjoyed the heck out of it. Sometimes I slept in the birds just to make sure I got a flight the next day. At the end of 30 days I was credited with 260 missions. And was given the Combat Air Crew Wings and 13 Air Medals. To back this up, I guess, or back up everything, when I was in Hawaii as a Remington Raider, I received a meritorious mast for having handled the SRB's service record books and the unit diaries for 2 squadrons simultaneously. That was Max Deuce and Mat Q70, and I learned to sport parachute there, which was a ball parachuting over the island of Oahu. Then I started making some military jumps off the record. Hope nobody will find out who I was with, but I made some jumps with them, and when I went to Vietnam I made a few jumps over there too with the South Vietnamese. Also with the South Koreans at Marble Mountain where I was stationed, I flew with them in their little, I don't know if they were Piper Cubs or Cessnas or whatever, and that's where I got my nickname of Pappy Yokam, from being the old, most of us old folks know about Mammy and Pappy Yokam, Little Abner. And so that's where I got that nickname. But bottom line is I flew illegally, if you will, with the South Koreans, and I sport parachuted with Kaneohe Marine Sport Parachute Club, and then made Marine Corps jumps out of, it was called a Caribou, and also out of the back of OV-10 Broncos. Those were also off the record, and I imagine I'd probably end up in jail if somebody caught me at the time. I don't know. But that's pretty much my life as far as the Corps. When I got out after 3 years of service, I was a sergeant, and excuse me, joined the reserves. First went to LTAF Santa Ana, to the AH-1 Huey Cobras with HMA 773. And then I moved up to Alameda Naval Air Station and was with RH-53s with HMH 769. Didn't fly, of course, with the AH-1s, but the 53s, I got to fly with them out to the Farallon Islands. And what we did there was resupply the college kids that were out there going through seagull poop and anyway, fecal matter of any animal that was out there, and they were keeping track of what they were eating and getting an idea of the ecology of the animal and bird life out there. So that was fun. We'd fly out for the weekend, and a lot of young college girls and all out there. My grandfather was in the Marine Corps. He served in World War I in France, and he did receive a Silver Star, but as I understand, they didn't have the Silver Star as it is today. It was a Silver Star that went on, I believe, the Victory Medal that you were given at the end of the war. I'm not sure. So he was also one reason why, since the Air Force was closed, I decided to go with the Marine Corps. And also my godmother was the 3rd Sergeant Major of Women Marines at Headquarters Marine Corps. She helped raise me. Didn't like her one bit, but there was something there that also kind of guided me a little more toward the Corps. A couple of things when I flew with the Purple Foxes that I don't know if you want to call them enjoyable or funny or what, but a lot of times when we picked up USO shows to take them to other bases, the pilot would come over the ICS and say we're going to pull a full auto, which was dropping out of the sky and rotating very quickly. And so when he told us he was going to do that, we would drop our dark visors, and when he dropped, and this was usually over Liberty Bridge, he would drop out of the sky real fast, start rotating. We'd of course come out of our seats, so would the USO girls. And then when he put on the, I don't know what you call it, the brakes or whatever, but we stopped, then it was hard to get back out of our seats again. We'd jump on our 50 cals, open up in the water, and of course the whole time we're looking at the young ladies with flying up in the air. So that was kind of a fun thing for a bunch of young whippersnappers out there. And another thing that was fun, one point we went into, well, at the time it wasn't fun. We went in, I was flying Stinger, and I was tied in with the D-ring with the belt, and I had the M60. We flew in to pull out a recon team. They ran on, the last guy gave me thumbs up, and that was my information to tell over the ICS to take off. And as you know, the 46, the ass end comes up, so the reason we were Stinger was to open up fire with the M60 to keep any enemies' heads down. Well, we started off and we got hit from somewhere and immediately went down on the ground. Recon ran off, set up a perimeter, and my first job was to go up and knock off the butt plate of the 50 cal on the left and grab ammo and my M60. And everybody ran off, I ran off, and I got shot in the gut. And that, I mean, I've never had such a feeling in my life. And that really hurt, for lack of a better term. And after a while, and the firing and all had stopped, the crew and the recon came over, and pretty soon I hear everybody laughing, and I'm in tears. And I look up, and my first thought is, you guys are a bunch of assholes. I'm sitting here belly shot and all. Then I realized I had forgotten to take off my safety belt. I got about 1 foot beyond the end of the bird, and the belt that was tied into the D-ring in the belly of the bird came rather tight, and I went down, and the weapons went everywhere and all. But so I wasn't really shot, just wind knocked out of me, and felt like somebody really punched me in the gut. One other thing that happened during my glorious 30 days with the Purple Foxes was one day we were in a pretty good little firefight, and apparently a piece of the bird got hit and dislodged and went up underneath my helmet, and we finished our mission and the fight was over, and we got back and there was blood everywhere. So I took off my helmet, started walking over to the corpsman there at Marble Mountain, and some staff sergeant started yelling at me, saying, "Marine, get your cover on." And I turned and looked at him with this absolutely red face and said, "I'll get my cover on when the corpsman says I can." He shut up. I went to the corpsman. Corpsman cleaned me up. He said, "I hate to tell you this, but I think you lost about 2, maybe 3 hairs. Apparently that when you get a little cut on the top of your head, you bleed like crazy because of all the small vessels." So it was nothing drastic, but it was one of those things that made me dislike staff sergeants. One of the few. As far as my thoughts on the war, as I mentioned, I wanted to get my own viewpoint on what I thought the war was about and how it was proceeding. When I got out, my feeling about the war was, one, the politicians need to get the hell out. There were too many rules and regulations of what you can and can't do. An example, when I was flying with the Purple Fox, was if 3 guys are on the ground and 1 was shooting at you, you couldn't shoot back because the other 2 might be friendly. I thought that was rather strange. Driving down the road, excuse me, in deuce and a half, the locals would always be in little Vespas, little motorcycles. They would they would frequently cut in front of the truck and force you off the road, and then there was an ambush waiting. Or they'd force you off the road into a ditch where you would have an accident. And they said, by all means, don't run them over. Finally, they said, if you run them over, if you hit them, don't try to miss them. If you hit them, stop and wait for the MPs to show up. Well, then again, it was an ambush. Finally, they said, run them over, get to safety on a base, and report what you did 5 miles back. So my feeling was, just like what's going on now, we need to keep the politicians out. We need to let the military people do their job, get in there, do it, get it done, and get our boys and girls home. As far as, again, why we were there, I heard a lot of things, but I had gone to a dinner with General Westmoreland was giving, and he said our reason for being there, and this was about 10 years after the war, was to slow the progress of the communists so that other countries in the area could be built up a little stronger. That seemed to make a little sense to me. I don't know if that's true or not, but my overall feeling now of war, pretty much any war, is I think they're kind of useless because it always ends up we're friends with them. We are enemies with them today, we are friends with them tomorrow. 10 years from now, we're enemies with them again. We fought with Ho Chi Minh against the Japanese. Now we're against him. So I have mixed emotions about that. And especially the war like in Afghanistan now and against the BC. To me, if you don't have a direct army to fight, somebody that fights under a certain code and has a uniform, to me it's kind of hard to distinguish who the bad guy is You don't know if somebody's going to get you from behind because you think they're a friend. So I don't know. I just wish if there is a war, one, it is declared, then hands off, let the military do their thing, let us kick ass and go home. That's about all I can think of. I appreciate the opportunity. I do want to say one last thing. My time with the Purple Foxes was the best.